Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at the top 10 best Jund commanders in MTG. Starting off the list at number 10 we have Gyrus, Waker of Corpses. This 0/0 Hydra ETBs with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equals the amount of mana spent to cast it. And whenever Gyrus attacks, you may exile target creature card with lesser power from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card that's tapped and attacking, exiling that token at the end of combat. So one popular route for this deck is those +1/+1 counters. If we play all those extra cards to get us more counters, we're beefing up Gyrus and allowing us to use its ability to get higher powered creatures exiled from your graveyard onto the field in token form. These decks tend to have mill galore. Get those big beefy creatures in your graveyard and cast token copies of these creatures whenever Gyrus attacks. Lastly, a common theme around these decks go Hydra Tribal. Not only do Hydras tend to be mighty powerful, but they also lean into a nice merge of either high powered creatures or those popular +1/+1 loving themes that Gyrus loves. Gyrus is an underrated commander option from the Commander 18 set and one that could definitely fly under the radar during a game of Commander. Before we get on to number 9, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Subscribing is completely free to do and it helps our channel grow and grow. You can also become a prickly pal today and join our brand new channel membership option to help support the channel. For the next best Jund commander we have Shattergang Brothers. From Commander 2013, this Goblin Artificer says pay 2 and a black to sack a creature. Each other player sacrifices a creature. Pay 2 and red to sacrifice an artifact, each other player sacks an artifact, and pay 2 and a green to sack an enchantment, and each other player sacrifices an enchantment. A popular strategy within the Shatter Bros is to lean into that aristocrats theme. Have many ways to get cheap disposable tokens onto the field, sacrifice those using Shattergang Brothers, and start clearing the board of your enemy's creatures. Get in all of those cards that will start benefiting when your enemy's creatures bite the dust, and you'll be at a super strong position to take control of the board and the game. Whilst we're talking tokens, lean into just Goblin Tribal. There are many cards in the game to create you those Goblin tokens to have as that sacrificial fodder, and then have those other Goblins on deck to boost your other Goblins. Finally, why not throw in a few 0 or 1 mana value artifacts or enchantments? There are plenty within MTG, so get some cheap options out on the field that when you're done with, you can sacrifice to Shattergang Brothers and make your opponents rage just a little bit more. You love to see it. Next on up we have Sakura, Deathkeeper, another one from Commander 13. This Orc Shaman says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a 3/1 black and red Graveborn creature token with haste onto the field. Again, as can be very common within Jund, we're sticking to that aristocrat strategy. Have millions of ways to sacrifice our own creatures, maybe even removing enemy creatures in the process. Get lots of 3/1 Graveborn onto the field and go attack heavy against our opponents. Having those ways to gain off our own creature's death is key, as well as fitting in those potential win cons like Pitiless Plunder to gain us treasure tokens and Revel in Riches to have that 10 treasure token upkeep victory. We can also add in Shaman aplenty if we're wanting to find ways to strengthen Sakura and make those Shaman spells cheaper to play. These tokens coming in will be hasty, so going aggro will be key. Either find ways to beef up those tokens, or just add in cards to the deck that will have those attack loving triggers. This Deathkeeper is a hell of a commander, and one that if it goes wide, it might just be too big to stop. For number 7 on this list we have Invictus Asmadi, the Dire. From M19, this Flying Elder Dragon says when it attacks, for each player choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sack those permanents. Each player who's sacked a permanent this way reveals the top card of their library, putting it onto the field if it's a permanent card. Here's where we're going for the always prestigious Gathering the Magic Card of the Deck award. This time it's going to Primal Surge. This high mana sorcery says exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the field. If you do, repeat this process. As you can see here, in the average Invictus deck, this is the only sorcery going, with there also being no instants, meaning you'll power through your deck and destroy your opponents. We've talked aristocrats aplenty, so here we'll talk about another popular way for Invictus, and that is Dragon Tribal. Jund is not only a strong colour combo on its own, but blends incredibly well for those dragons, especially in red. Plenty of dragon loving cards, and finally if you get in all of those cards like Rhythm of the Wild, those dragons will be hitting the field without a worry and you'll be shouting Dracaris and burning your opponents into the ground. Just missing out on the top half, we have Kresh the Blood-Braided. From Shards of Alara, this human warrior says whenever another creature is put into the graveyard from play, you may put X +1/+1 counters on Kresh the Blood-Braided, where X is that creature's power. So once again, as Jun loves to do, we're going on a sacrificial slaughter here. Killing our opponent's creatures, killing our own, it really doesn't matter, as the more creatures leaving that field, the more we're going to beef up Kresh and smash into our opponent's faces. And if we're getting on all sorts of equipment onto Kresh that can deal even more game-ending damage and other cards that can smash face, then you'll be getting the win before you know it. Lastly, the stronger this commander gets, which can happen quickly, the quicker Kresh will become a big time threat, so do pack in a few extra ways to keep Kresh on the field. Strong Kresh equals happy Kresh equals quick win for you equals angry opponents. Next on up we have Fantasiata the Warweaver. From Commander 2018, this Vigilant Spider with Reach says all creatures attack each combat if able. And whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Fantasiata. So for a deck like this, we're leaning heavily into that forced combat strategy. Fantasiata is all about making all creatures attack each turn, so we're either getting out many of those goady cards to keep our opponents swinging at each other, as well as those cards that trigger whenever an opponent swings at you. Start getting your opponents pinged for 1, create you some more creatures, and get as many ways as possible to make your opponents not want to swing directly at your face. Throw in a fair few planeswalkers too. The stronger they get to ulting, the more likely your opponents are to swing directly at your planeswalkers. Finally, if you're wanting to stick to the tribal life, then there are many spiders within the world of MTG to create an incredibly insecty deck. We just need a Spider-Man secret lair now, and then we'll be laughing. Just missing out on the bronze medal spot, we have Prosh Skyraider of Care. Another from that Commander 13 set, this flying dragon says when you cast it, create X01 red kobold creature tokens named Kobolds of Care Keep, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast Prosh. And you can sack another creature to give Prosh +1/+0 until end of turn. Once again, we're relying on all of that sacrifice. All of those classic ways to sack your creatures, beef up Prosh as much as possible so it can fly over your opponent's face and smash over your opponents for the win. We need plenty of sacrifice to really force through that commander damage, so we can also get in all of those creatures, enchantments, instants and more that will constantly be replenishing our battlefield with tokens to have as that sacrificial fodder. There is no cost to use that sacrifice ability too, unlike previously seen commanders in this list, such as Shattergang Brothers. So this really does have an extra level of potential to be your commander. Maybe I'll make Prosh my commander one day. Taking the bronze medal spot, we have Urlock of Scorch Thrash. This 4/4 Vigilant Shaman says a player losing unspent mana causes that player to lose that much life. So Urlock is all about getting every which way to give your opponents all of the mana, spread across different phases so they're losing mana and losing life. We'll also throw in classic cards like Mana Barbs, so when they're using that mana, they're being hit for even more life and they'll be drained of that 40 life before you know it. You can also throw in great combos like Havoc Festival and Wound Reflection. Have them lose half their life on their upkeep with Havoc Festival, then with Wound Reflection lose life equal to the life they've lost this turn. We also have a deadly combo with Leyline of Abundance and Umbra Mantle. Pay 1 and tap Urlock to give each player Jund and an extra green. Pay 3 to untap Urlock with Umbra Mantle. Repeat the process to give your opponents infinite mana. Move to the next phase and drain your opponents for all of that life. Urlock is a great commander and one that is now definitely on my list.
You just made the list! Oh no! Oh, here we go.
Runner up and the second best Jund commander is Lord Wingrace. Another precon king, its +2 says discard a card then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. The -3 says return up to 2 lands from your graveyard to the battlefield, and the ult -11 says destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents, then create 6 2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with Forest Walk. The name of the game for Wingrace is lands. As you can see, the average Wingrace deck has around 40 lands, which is very heavy for your average commander. Get in all of those landfall living cards, all of the cards that get those lands out of your graveyards, and all of those cards that let you play extra lands each turn. Cards like Radar that allow you to peek at the top card of your library are great, as well as cards like Evolution Sage. Play lands, ramp on up and proliferate Lord Wingrace at the same time. Then with all of that land, we can have plenty on board to either protect Lord Wingrace so we can eventually ult it, or just have so much mana on the board that we can cast huge end game creatures to stomp over our opponents for the win. Winner and the best Jund commander is Corvold, Fey Cursed King. Winner by a country mile in our Instagram poll, the Flying Dragon Noble from Eldraine says when it ETBs or attacks, sack another permanent. And when you sacrifice another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. We've talked about enough sacrifice in this video, so we'll talk about all of that treasure. Corvold boosts up whenever you sack any permanent, so if we're talking treasure, not only do we sacrifice them to get some mana, but we're also beefing up Corvold at the same time, so it's a win-win for everyone. Well, except our opponents. And we've got many ways to get double the amount of treasures when we create them, or those ways to get the win if we have many treasures. Thankfully, recent sets like Modern Horizons 2 and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms have been very treasure heavy, so going for this strategy will fill out our deck in no time at all. You have millions of treasure, millions of mana, and Corvold will be swinging at your opponents for 1,000,000 damage. If you did also want to see a full budget Corvold deck tech we did in Decktober, do check it out, I'll put the link in the description below. There we have it, that is the list. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.